So we're going to have two running themes. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for having us here, and we're really excited to be part of this symposium. There are going to be two main themes that run through our lecture. One is kind of light giving, lending meaning to materials, materials lending meaning back to light, and the way those two things interplay. And then kind of the ebb and flow between what we describe as pure materials research and applied materials research. And as we go through the lecture, each of those will become more clear. And the way the lecture is structured, it'll be three projects. One is the Pacific Rim project, taught last fall. One is a Reinvent the Switch project, and one is a studio project. Both of those are courses we've taught in the past. And the last project will be FlexiCode, and that's a studio project that we've been working on as research at PadLab. So the first topic is a collaborative studio between Art Center and Tama University. This is, we taught the third Pacific Rim project in the fall 2007. We went over to Japan with 10 Art Center students. It was an interdisciplinary group of both Art Center Tama students from graphics, environmental, product, textile, and media design. And so every team was interdisciplinary based, and just to go over kind of starting at the end a little bit, the project culminated in an exhibit, a 3-day exhibit that you see here, and we will go over just two of the projects and the processes that led to their conclusion. So just to go over the brief really quickly for that project, the question we asked of the studio is how can the design of an illuminated object inspire people to personally reconsider their impact on the environment and act more responsibly? So a lot like the definition of sustainability that's been kind of talked about today is that it's not necessarily any one decision, but kind of a greater kind of set of actions or outcomes at the broadest level. So the example that we showed in class and that we'd like to, that is kind of a good example of this is a power cord that allows you to see how much electricity is running through the cord by how brightly it glows, excuse me. And so this is something that, a term we borrowed from Hydran, that makes the invisible visible. So you can actually kind of get a sense or a visual feedback of what's going on inside that power cord. And yes, it's, at one level it's using a little more electricity, it's generating more light, but at a larger level it allows somebody to kind of tailor their actions in the most responsible way.
And there were a total of 8 interdisciplinary teams. We just have time to focus on 2 of those teams' projects, and these are both the teams that had textile students in them. Tom has an amazing textile program, a lot of different kind of crazy machines that none of the Art Center students had seen before. And everyone was really excited to overlap between kind of the product and graphic design process that we're used to with these 2 textile students. We're going to start with Shiki, which was the top one, Yukiko Akita from Tama and Kylie Sue from Art Center Graphics. And they really began with, I guess what we call a bit more of a pure research project, just looking at how tradition and festivals bring people together and what are the emotional and social aspects of traditional Japanese festivals. And actually Kylie was looking at traditional Chinese and Taiwanese festivals. It was part of kind of this cultural exchange. And then translating those, really tactile exploration of how do you embed light in textiles to capture the spirit and kind of the emotional quality of a lot of that light from the festivals. And this exploration was part of a larger exploration that the whole class did, which was very much a hands-on process, looking at materials and technology and kind of how they interact together. And what Team Shiki kind of hit upon was shibori, which you can look at some samples later on the table. It's a traditional Japanese textile process, which is just fantastic. It's a heat-formed, 3-dimensional textile, and you can make kind of almost any shape that you can imagine. It's like translating origami into fabric. And at midterm, they were looking at kind of different forms of shibori. And the one that they hit on as having a lot of rich potential is this large image which kind of all these little ball shapes in it. And it's actually made a little bit like when you do tie-dye and you put rubber bands around fabric. This puts rubber bands around marbles. And you, instead of dyeing it, you can dye it, but you dip it in boiling water and it keeps that form. And then, like with tie-dye, when you take off the rubber bands, instead of the color being kind of memorized by the material, the shape is. I guess you could call this some sort of shape memory. I'm not sure if that's technically appropriate. And this hands-on research was reinforced by a lot of outside workshops and presentations that we were really lucky to have in the class. Tom organized everything ranging from traditional textile classes, banana textiles, looking at recycled banana fiber, information design, and also we brought in some cutting edge technology. Mongoose Studio does interactive design, and Svellar solar technology was what seemed to have a lot of potential for textile design. These are micro photovoltaic beads. They're each like 1 or 2 millimeters, and they're perfect spheres, so they collect energy from the sun from all angles. They don't just have to be facing south, and they can be embedded in translucent, flexible materials. These things were totally amazing. We tried to get some for the Symposium Art Center, but there's only a few that they kept close hands on. And the team realized the potential to embed these micro solar beads into the textiles. So you have this substrate of textile that has light inside of it. It has the means of collecting power inside of it, and then you could actually store the power. So it's kind of this like microchip translated into a textile. And then in order to, I guess you would call this some aspect of design for disassembly, they figured how do you literally embed the light in the textile? And since the textile is modeled around marbles, the solution is modeling silicone around marbles, and then the silicone becomes the diffuser for each of these lights, and if you do need to switch out a light, you can, or wash the fabric, you just pull out the silicone bead. This is Kylie and Kiko, who are outside in the freezing cold in Japan, kind of making these marbles. And the final project was a really lovely scarf that when you wear it outside during the day collects solar energy, and then when you go home in the evening it can glow, and you can use it as a nightlight or you can wear it out on the town, and it's really connecting this process of collecting energy with the light that's using the energy, and it's also kind of a personal emotional connection with the object. The beads are representing the Svellar technology. And we actually had a representative from Kyosemi, the company that makes Svellar, who's really excited at the final to see his product in use, and it's already just kind of in this prototyping stage. And again, a detail of the final result. So we're going to shift gears still within the same Tama class to a really different take on the brief. And the brief is intentionally left incredibly broad. This is a different precedent example. You need to go to YouTube to check out the video. And it's the World Wildlife Fund, which has this kind of brilliant advertising campaign. If you're in our illumination class, you've seen this, where the shadow of the sun over the course of the day powers the billboard and makes it look like we can see the ocean levels rising. And this is an idea about light and communication as part of a campaign for awareness about climate change. And this is going to be the precedent for the next project, which is really different scale from the first one. So this was a team, Darren, who a lot of you guys know, hopefully is here, and their team researched different climate change scenarios for 3 potential cities, and this was going on at the same time when the UN climate change report had just come out. So there was a lot of information that was being discussed in the press, and they kind of applied this information to 3 specific scenarios. Tokyo, if at some point it would be flooded. Los Angeles, we're getting close to black ash already, at least downtown where we live. And drought in Paris. And these scenarios might seem incredibly far off. And actually this team started by looking at science fiction scenarios for 1,000 years in the future. And they realized that science fact for less than 100 years in the future was much more striking and almost much scarier than science fiction. And that being said, this is an amazing campaign, but they didn't want to do a scare tactic campaign. A lot of you may have seen these posters, and to my children I leave, and there's this scorched earth. And this is sort of one of the most powerful images that I've seen as a campaign against climate change, but this team really made a conscious decision to tell their story in, I guess for lack of a better word, a sort of more positive sense, or something that makes you think in a different way. And they were looking really how to translate their research into stories, and they wanted to use textiles as part of it. So they did a campaign through fashion that really kind of entices you instead of scaring you.